Tuesday's primary day in 3 states, including Arizona, where immigration is a big issue, as it is everywhere in this presidential campaign. There's another harsh reality on the border that you may be surprised to hear exists in America. U.S. border towns so influenced by the influx of illegal smugglers and drugs, it's worked its way into the fabric of daily life. To see for ourselves, we visited Douglas, Arizona, a town of about 17,000. It's just across the border from the Mexican town of Agua Prieta, a famous battle site of the Mexican Revolution in the early 1900s. Our guide is a Douglas native and Border Patrol agent who views the town's challenges as a testament to the larger border problems facing the U.S.
It's just well known, it's just well known who's involved in drugs. It's well known on both sides.
For U.S. Border Patrol agent Art Del Cueto, the dusty drive south to his hometown of Douglas, Arizona, is a twisted trip down memory lane.
This is 10th Street. I grew up here. I remember driving through these streets all the time.
At the Douglas port of entry,
as a kid, we used to go into Mexico all the time.
He still finds a familiar face.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it.
$1 billion in legal trade passes through this port each year. And then there's the illegal trade. Unknown amounts of marijuana, opium, and heroin are smuggled in vehicles or across the fence. On the other side of the fence is the Mexican city Agua Prieta.
In this area on the south end, it's basically the Sinaloa cartel that runs this whole operations down there.
It's a well-known drug smuggling corridor controlled by the most powerful drug trafficking organization on the planet.
Look at this house. If I had that much money where I could afford that house, I think Agua Prieta in front of the border would be the last place I would have built that house.
It's become a constant theme in Douglas and other U.S. border towns. The corrupting influence of Mexico's drug cartels has worked its way into the community in ways that many Americans would find shocking, but local residents take for granted.
Unfortunately, living and growing up here, it's easier to take the bad road. It's less taboo to do the bad thing than it is to take the high road, and that it is to do the right thing.
Growing up, drugs were plentiful and often free for the asking.
When I was in 6th grade, it was the very, very first time that I saw heroin, and the first time that I saw an individual using heroin, and it was another kid in junior high.
The D on the hill stands for Douglas. It's used as a navigation marker by smugglers. Have you ever wondered what this town would be like if it weren't for the drug trade?
3/4 of the town wouldn't be here. A lot of Douglas exists because of the drug trade.
Come to a town like this in Arizona and ask about drug cartels, and it's not a bad idea to have extra security. We did. Fear of retaliation from the drug cartel interests is why this local resident asked not to be identified. He told us he was approached by drug traffickers operating in Douglas.
They just walked in. It was closing time, and they took out a large amount of cash and told me this is how it's going to work. You don't know if you're going to be assaulted, maybe a gun was going to pull out. I just didn't know what to do.
And so how did you get out of that situation?
I just took my stand. I told them that from day one, my parents always told me, you're never going to dirty your name. Work hard for your money. It's better to have no money than dirty money.
He believes that rejection of the drug traffickers is why his business rent was tripled, forcing him to close down. Daniel Nunez also resists pressure and temptation. He comes from Agua Prieta each day, where he lives and takes classes, to work legally in this Douglas coffee house. Do you walk over?
Yeah.
You must have friends or people you know who've gotten mixed up in crime and bad things.
Yeah, actually, I have a lot of friends in Mexico that they cross drugs. They're telling me, hey, do you want to smoke? Do you want drugs? Something that I don't do. I don't want that for me. I want to, I want to grow up, be a good person, have my work, have a job.
Before the drugs, Douglas was the smelter city, a booming western copper smelting town, a stone's throw from the rich discoveries of gold, silver, and copper in the 1880s. The Grand Gadsden Hotel stands as a reminder of Douglas's heyday. Legend has it that Mexico's Revolutionary General Pancho Villa rode his horse up this staircase and chipped the 7th stair from the bottom, right there. But the smelter shut down in 1987. 347 jobs and $27 million a year evaporated from the local economy. Mexico's emerging drug trade was there to fill the void. Robert Uribe envisions a different future for Douglas. He's an artist from the Dominican Republic who owns the coffee shop.
Douglas has all the elements laid out to be successful again. I think that we're in a process of finding that identity.
Uribe settled here after marrying a local.
Anytime.
They hope to help convert the town into a tourist center and art colony.
I'm very excited to be able to present Douglas a new idea, a new vision.
And no one has approached you and tried to ask you to launder money or be part of this?
I've yet to experience that. So that to me shows me that people respect what we do. So I hope that they don't approach me with any of those suggestions of wanting to do anything that's illegal, because that's not what we do.
So if I apprehend him here, it's just easier.
Del Cueto would also like to see a different future for his hometown, but says it's a monumental fight given the current state of the border.
Tucson sector is still responsible for over 50% of all the drugs that are coming into the country. That's humongous. That's a huge, huge amount. You see people further into the country that say, it can't be that bad, it can't be that bad. It is that bad. I remember running around this block and...
Today he can't help but engage in an old pastime, pointing out people living lifestyles that he says are far beyond what their legitimate salaries would allow.
It's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. People try to turn a blind eye.
And that realization is the key to how and why Del Cueto says he got out of Douglas and sought a career as a Border Patrol agent fighting the very cartels that have long corrupted his home. Douglas is a town that what?
Douglas is a town that doesn't forget. That's what I would say. It's a town that has taught me a lot of lessons. It teaches a lot of people a lot of lessons, and you have to know how to take those lessons and learn from them.
We learned a lot about the influence and the method of the drug trade on the Arizona border. In the weeks ahead on Full Measure, we'll take you into the tunnels that are the high-volume highways for smuggling drugs into the United States. The number and the degree of sophistication are incredible. One border agent called them scary. When we return, we move on to one of our favorite projects, Follow the Money, like the Afghan Air Force that never left the ground. New information on the billion-dollar boondoggle in U.S. efforts to help rebuild Afghanistan.